All right, I have all my geometry cut out for my box project. You have to deburr the edges. So some of the geometry in this is a little hard to get at. The file here I can stick in there and I can kind of on an angle, and I can file here. But when I get to this point, although I can get it in there, there's no resistance behind the metal, so it bends if you just push the file on it like that. So what I do normally is I'll put it on the edge of the table right here, on the metal table, where it can have some support. And then I'll file it that way. So I'll hang the edge over all the way around where it can have some support. Anywhere I need to do it, just same as like here. I can't get my hand behind it. Normally I can, if I can hold my hand behind it like that, I can support it that way, like this. Even right here, if I can get my hand behind there, I can file this way. And I'll have some support, and it won't bend. You have to hold close to where you're filing so it doesn't do this. So in this corner, I can't really get my hand back there, so that's one of the edges I'll put on the table. And I'll file this way. And I'll just go right around. And then now I can get my hand back there. So I'll do this up to where I can, and then I'll put it on the table. Anywhere I can use the table to help me out, I'm going to. And then where I can put my hand behind the metal, like that, I will. But you need some support behind. Now with your geometry drawn on this side, most of your cuts are going to be from this side. In these corners it's going to be kind of jagged from the aviation shears, top and bottom. So you got to get both sides inside the corners here. Like that. But most of the other burrs will be on the back side. So again, get in the corners. If you have a lot of burr down inside those holes, you've got to hold it flat. Now take your piece of sandpaper. And get your edges. All right, very good. If you want to clean up the back side, done, ready for bending. Okay, ready to bend my box. What do I have here? My box part, my sheet metal, my vice grip clamp, some extra tooling in case I need it, a 1/2-inch wrench so I can loosen the fingers and change out the tools, square to measure my right angle, and a ruler in case I need to bend anything back. First bend you need to make are the hems. The hems are the 1/4 inch bends that go all the way around this. Hems are a bend that go all the way around and are flattened back down upon the sheet metal. But this machine will only bend as far as that. That is as far as the sheet metal will bend on an angle. That is the tightest angle the sheet metal can bend. I want this metal to go all the way back down and back and squished against the sheet metal. So I have to bend it up as far as it can go. Then I'm gonna put it down in the machine this way and put it back under the machine, and I'm just gonna crush that bend. That is called a hem. It's bent 180 degrees all the way back upon itself. This needs a little more work because you can see it's just a radius and it's not really actually squished all the way down. So we're gonna hammer these down when we're done. But I'm gonna go around and hammer and bend these hems and squish them down so that they're 180 degrees back upon the metal. What that does is it makes a safer edge up here because it bends it over and it makes it more of a rounded edge, and it's not so thin and irregular at the edge. So it makes a safer edge, and it really strengthens the sheet metal compared to this. Now it doubles the strength, and the bending here makes it really rigid. So it strengthens the metal and makes it a safer edge. So I'm going to go around and bend all of these hems first. Bend them all the way up as far as the machine will go. Open it up and put it back in this way and smash them down. All the way around. Like that. That's the first step. Bend all the hems 180 degrees so they're flat. Next, we're going to hammer the hems. This is an anvil. Anvils are made for hammering metal. The face of an anvil, the top here, is hardened steel. It's very hard. The head of a hammer is also very hard. So you never want to strike the anvil with the hammer without any metal in between. Listen to the sound. There's a big difference. You always want a softer metal in between the hammerhead and the anvil. Never strike the anvil without metal between it, because it could crack and damage the anvil or crack and damage the hammer. So when you're hammering, you never want to hold your object where you're hammering. There's a much higher chance of you hitting your fingers. You hold the opposite side. So if I'm going to hammer across this hem, I hold the opposite side. Hold the opposite side of the metal. It makes it much safer when your hands are out of the way. You don't have to hit super hard. Let the hammer do the work. One thing about hammering is the way you hold your wrist is kind of an unnatural form. So you have to watch your orientation with the hammer this way and also forward and backward so that you're hitting the metal as flat as possible. If you're twisted left or right or forward or backward, you're going to hit with the edge of the hammer and you're going to mark up and dent the piece of metal. For example, if I'm hitting flat, there's no damage. It's still a flat piece of metal. If my wrist is turned a little, it starts to make divots. If it's lifted a little or down a little and hits the edge, it starts to make divots. You have to be as flat as possible to not make any divots in the metal. You don't want to make divots and dent marks. You want a flat piece of metal. As I'm hammering the edge of the hem, the only part I'm hammering is the outermost edge where it's thickest, right here, where it rounds around. If you look all the way down here, it's already touching the metal. I don't have to hammer this part. I'm only hammering right on the edge where it's thickest and needs to come together. Where the gap is, where the space is, here. I don't want to hammer inside here because it's already touching the metal. If I do so, it's going to start getting dinged up like this, and it's not going to look right. It's going to damage the metal. Also, you do not want to hit too hard. If you hit too hard with the metal, with the hammer, it's eventually going to start pushing the metal out of shape and cause your material to bow. And you're never going to get it back. It's going to start doing this. And you're never going to get it back into the original flat shape. So you have to be careful not to hammer too hard. You only want to hammer until that gap is closed. Hold the end of the hammer. If it's too heavy on a hammer, you can choke up like this. But you are not going to get as hard of a hit with the hammer as you choke up on it. The farther you hold the hammer out, the more work the hammer is going to do. Let the hammer do the work. Just let the hammer fall. You don't want to strike with power. Let the hammer do the work. Let it fall right into place. And see how I'm hitting only out here on the edge where the gap is. Just like that. Slide it across. Keep the hammer hitting in the same space and move the piece of sheet metal through the hammer bangs, through the hammer hits. So I was hitting in the same space with the hammer and I was just sliding the sheet metal through. This is what the final product should look like. It should have a flat hem now, all the way down. And this part should not be lifting away from the sheet metal here. If it's lifting away, you've hit it too far, too hard. So it should just be flat, straight across, like this. That is what you are after right here. You want it touching all surface. Nice and flat. So do those hammer hits on the hems all the way around. Holding the opposite side each time. Now each of these sides are much more rigid and safer. Now that the hems are done, I'm going to bend my 4 walls and the tabs. The tabs are going to be bent at the same time as this wall. So you have this wall now and these 2 tabs. The last 2 bends are going to be the 2 long walls, because you have to bend the tabs first. You have to bend the tabs first so that they come inside when you bend the last walls. It's just like that practice piece. So I'm going to go straight across the wall and the tabs. $90, watching for spring back. I think that's good. Check it with the square. That's like right on. Beautiful. Do the opposite side with the tabs. Watching the spring back. Check the angle. Actually, that one looks very good too. This is where the vice grip clamps come in to play, because now this wall has to be bent up and in, and this wall has to be bent up and in. But these tabs right now are directly in line. These tabs are directly in line with this wall because we bent them on the same line. So I have to make sure that they go to the inside of the box. So I'm gonna hand bend them just a little bit more with the clamp. The way the clamp works is this is the release right here. You push it in to open it. And you squeeze it together to close it. This screw right here opens the gap between the jaw. So you can make it wider if you screw it out, and if you screw it in, it will close. So you want to screw it all the way, while it's closed, screw it all the way up so that the jaw is as closed as possible. Then open it and give it a little more, like a quarter turn, a half turn, and then it will clamp shut. So you want to set it about there and clamp it shut right on the tab. Like that. Putting your palm now on the back of the box. Bend it a little bit more. Just the tab. And release the clamps. This way, now the tab is bent a little bit further than the wall and will slip behind this wall when we make the final bend. And it won't crash. The tab won't crash into this wall. That's what we want. We don't want this tab to crash into the wall. So we have to bend it a little bit further beyond where this wall has been, so it will slip behind. So I have to do that to all 4 tabs. 1. You don't want it, you don't have to bend it a lot, just enough to get past the wall. Okay, now that I have all my tabs bent in, now I can bend these 2 walls up without interference. Now this is where you have to set up the tooling to fit right inside here. So I am going to find the tools that work best to fit right inside like this. So I'm going to loosen this end one. Maybe slide it over. Put my box in. Oh, and look at that. That one will work perfect. So I'm going to put this tool up into there. Grab a bowl. Tighten it into place. Now I can make my last 2 bends. just gonna slide it right in there. And as I'm bending now, I want to watch and make sure that the tabs don't hit. They shouldn't, but just keep your eye just in case. And these walls will only, you can only bend as far as this wall will hit the table. Now you can see how the tabs being bent a little bit further fit inside. That's a better view. That last wall. Last bend. And that's your box. We're going to talk about these holes on the next video. Okay, this table is meant to hold tooling to hammer with. A forging table or a stake table or sometimes a swage table it's called. But it holds like stake tools that you can hammer on with different shapes and sizes. There's square stakes, mushroom stakes. So there's a lot of different tools you can put on here to hammer on for different purposes. So I'm going to use this squaring stake to square out my tabs that I have bent past 90 degrees. So I'm just going to put them on and knock back the corner. And the metal will take on that shape of in the corner. So where my tabs are bent past 90 degrees, I can bend them back. Again, don't hammer super hard. This is only really thin sheet metal. You don't need to be hammering that hard. You let the hammer do the work. You see me raising it up and down? That's because the box is thicker than the stake. And I only want to hammer where the stake has surface. So I'm hammering where the stake has surface, and then I'm just bringing up the box and lowering it. And now I squared up all my tabs so that they are not bent past 90 degrees anymore.